so I'm here with my April reading wrap up. This will actually go up on the day that it's recorded. That very rarely happens, and I'm just home from the dentist, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit. This month I read 9 books. 3 of those on my Kindle, the rest are physical books, and I'm actually going to start with the Kindle books this time around, switch things up a little. God, why did I say that? That's actually quite lame. Dentist, it's all the dentist's fault. Anyway, so the first book that I read on my Kindle was Loving Ellie by Lindsay Brooks. This is an adult romance, contemporary, chick lit type read that I requested on NetGalley because occasionally I like these light, fluffy reads. I didn't enjoy this book very much at all. It just wasn't very interesting. It was just very flat, very dull. Nothing particularly interesting happens. Ellie is pregnant. The baby's father passed away in an accident, and that brings his brother home. I can't remember his name. And then they start to fall in love, but I didn't see why. There was just no connection, no chemistry, no reason for anything. It was just very, very dull. The next book that I read on my Kindle is also one that I requested on NetGalley, and that is Lick by Kylie Scott. I requested this one because you guys know how much I love my new adult contemporary romances. They're a genre that I'm really enjoying, I'm still enjoying. But I did not enjoy this one, and I seem to be in the minority. All the reviews on Goodreads seem to be rave reviews. I just didn't like it. I forgot to say actually that I gave Loving Ellie 1.5 out of 5 stars. Anyway, back to Lick. Oh, what are their names? I remember the guy's name is David, and I can't remember the girl's name. But anyway, the book opens, and the girl basically is woken up. She's can't remember the night before. She was drunk, and she finds out she's married a famous rock star, but she can't remember. So he gets all pissed and storms off, and he plans for them to get a divorce. Then they end up spending time together and really liking each other, but he has trust issues. She was very annoying. One minute she never wanted to see him again, the next she was crying her eyeballs out. She was very weak, very irritating character, and I just didn't care for her at all. David was just really strange. Everyone seems to be swooning over this David. Moody and brooding is fine, but I just didn't like him. Just didn't like him at all. You never really found out about what made them get married the night that they did. I just didn't get it, really. Didn't connect with the characters anyway. That got 1 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I read on my Kindle was another NetGalley read, and that's Nash by J. Crownover, book 4 in the Marked Men series. I really enjoyed this one. I really like the Marked Men series as a whole. I've read Rule, which is book 1, and then I haven't read book 2, which is Jet. That's the only one I haven't read. I have read Rome, which is book 3, and now I've read Nash. Nash is Rule's best friend. He's a tattooist at the tattoo shop where this series sort of revolves around, hence the Marked Men. The tattoo shop is called the Marked, and this is Nash's turn. You find out in book 3, Rome, that the guy that brought a lot of the friends together has a terminal illness, and Nash finds out that he always thought it was his uncle, but it turns out that it's his dad, and it's him dealing with that. And also he is attracted to a nurse at the hospital called Saint, but they have some history together in that they went to high school together, and she has a lot of self-esteem issues. I did enjoy this one. It wasn't my favourite of the series so far. as I haven't read yet, I can't categorically state this, but so far, out of the ones I've read, I would say that Rule remains my favourite. Saint got a little bit irritating with her self-esteem issues. I know what it's like to be shy and, you know, to hear people say horrible things about you, to be bullied, to have that bad opinion of yourself. Don't worry, I get it. I fully get it. You know, I've gone through it myself. I understand where she's coming from. But she showed very little progression. It was a good little read though, just not my favourite of the series so far, but I did love Nash. I think Saint let it down a little bit, but Nash, I really, really loved his side of the story, loved it. So I gave it, I'm sort of torn. I'm torn between giving it 3 and giving it 3.5 out of 5. It's somewhere in that region. Okay, on to the physical books that I read. The first book that I read was These Broken Stars. This is by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. This was okay for me. I had really hoped to love it. I mean, look at that stunning cover right there. It's just absolutely gorgeous. This is supposed to be, from the blurb and the cover, and it was supposed to be for me a really tense teen sci-fi book. But for me, a lot of that was lacking. Basically, you have, let's see, Lilac, who is sort of a very wealthy girl. Her father is basically this well-known businessman. And then you have Tava, who is very, he's a lower class and he's basically a soldier. And the two wouldn't ordinarily meet, but their spaceship crashes and they are the only two survivors, and they crash on a strange planet and they basically have to survive. I struggled with this one. I loved that it was dual point of view, so one chapter was in Lilac's, one was in Tava's. I really appreciated that. My main issue was that when they crash, very little happens. Very little actually goes on. Most of it is just them walking, setting up camp, walking, setting up camp, arguing, walking, setting up camp, arguing, walking, setting up camp. Very little happens. Lilac, she basically, she starts off in the book as a very bitchy character, and she says that she acts this way because she has to protect people, because when she was younger her father had a boy that she was interested in killed, basically, to protect her, and so she portrays this so no one gets close to her so it doesn't happen again. But she doesn't change very much throughout the book. Her situation doesn't make her an awfully better person, doesn't change her that much, and then suddenly she just changes like this, and you don't really see why, because yes, she's going through this ordeal, but you don't really see how that changes her, which was a shame. Tava, I much preferred his character. I thought his character had way more depth to it. Lilac was basically a shallow pool. But I have to say, the last 100 pages really turned it up. It really got interesting. But did that make up for the slowness and the boringness of the rest of the book? I don't think so. If the rest of the book had been like the last 100 pages, it would have been fantastic. But it wasn't. There was still a lot of unresolved questions for me. I was like, well, what was that thing? Why did they do that? What was this whole secret project? I mean, just didn't tie it all up. Like, I can speculate till the cows come home, but I don't want to do that. I want the story to be resolved for me, and it wasn't, and that was a little disappointing. So this is another one I'm torn with. I don't know whether to give it 2.5 out of 5 stars or 3. Very torn with this one. The next book that I read was quite a beast. It was, I think this is the biggest, no, it's not the biggest book I've read so far. We'll get to that. This was 573 pages. I did read quite a few chunky books this month. I'm quite proud of myself. And that was The King by J.R. Ward. This is book 12 in the Black Dagger Brotherhood, and this was in my last book haul. And I did what I said I would do. I skipped the previous few books in the series because I had been losing interest because of the drastic change in the type of story it's becoming, and I went straight to the King purely because this one is to do, mostly they have the main storyline, and that's about Wrath and Beth. They are my favourite couple in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. They kicked the series off. They were book 1, so they have a special place in my heart, and I basically wanted to read more about them. And this is about them struggling basically to be king and queen of the vampire race. A lot of the vampire aristocracy want Wrath and Beth gone. And also Beth desperately wants them to have a child. I really enjoyed this one, even though I've skipped a couple of the books. I found it okay to get back into, and this has actually restarted my love for the series. I think that I would continue on with the series. When the next book comes out, I would read it. Do I think I'll go back and read the ones I've missed? Maybe. But I did really enjoy this. I did feel that Beth's character, her personality seemed to change, and a lot of her pop culture references, particularly to Miley Cyrus, got a little bit irritating and repetitive, and her just the way her thoughts come across on paper seemed different. And I didn't hate her, it just got a little irritating at some points because it wasn't how I remembered her to be. Love Wrath. I loved seeing a few other of the characters in there, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where Layla and X-Cor's story go. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. Gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read, you haven't seen in a haul yet. It literally arrived for review, and I was like, I fancy reading that. So yeah, let's pick that up. And it's a Regency romance novel, and it's 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake, and this is by Sarah MacLean. This showed up for review because they've republished the Love by Numbers trilogy, which this is book 1 of. And this was a really cute, humorous Regency romance. I mean, if you're a fan of the genre, you're going to want to read it. Sarah MacLean is a highly recommended Regency romance, and I think she was recommended to me when I went to the Pyatkas blogger event back in September last year. She was one of the authors that was recommended to me that I hadn't read. And with this, yeah, I definitely see that, and I'm really looking forward to reading the other 2 books that were very kindly sent to me. And I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. The next physical book that I read was The Forever of Ella and Micah by Jessica Sorensen. This is the sequel to The Secret of Ella and Micah, which I actually read. When I read this, I didn't realise, but I was reading the first book same time last year. That was just a little quirky thing that I found funny. I did enjoy this one. Didn't enjoy it as much as the first one. Don't want to give you spoilers if you haven't read the first one. But this was okay for me. It just wasn't anything. It's hard to explain. I really like Ella and Micah together, but for a lot of this book they weren't together. Ella developed all these issues, and I understand, like, she found her mother's body after her mother killed herself. We're going back a few years, and I mean, she was suffering from the trauma with it in book 1, but it just seemed to come out of nowhere with this one, and it just seemed like a stupid reason for them not to be together, a lot of what she was thinking. And Micah has issues with his deadbeat dad who left his family, but that didn't seem to go anywhere. It was just kind of there, and then it wasn't. That should have really been developed a little more, I think. But it was still really good, really enjoyed it, and I gave it 3 out of 5. The next book that I read was something a little bit different for me. And this is another one you haven't seen in a haul yet, and that's The Book of You by Claire Kendall. I basically picked this one up because I saw it first on Deborah's Book Cafe's channel. She received it and she read the blurb, and it just sort of stuck with me. And then I saw it again on Duvet Day Devour's channel, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna pick that up, and it was really cheap anyway. And I love this cover, how like creepy it is, and it's a psychological thriller, an adult psychological thriller. As you guys know, that's not really my go-to genre, but I did enjoy this. I really enjoyed this. It's about a woman called Clarissa who is being stalked by a colleague, and it's getting progressively more sinister what her colleague's doing, and then she's called up for jury service, and she thinks perfect sorry, chance to get away from him. And then the case she's on the jury for is she's starting to see parallels. And then it just spirals from there. It's told in her diary entries, and then also just normal as it's happening. I did enjoy it. I didn't feel like I got to know Clarissa, though. All I really know about her was that she's a secretary, she's in her late 30s, and she likes to sew. Didn't really see much personality from her. They were just like cold facts almost. The stalking aspect I thought was portrayed really well, how it progressed and gradually got worse and worse, and also how it was sort of handled, how people would perceive it as not being that big of a deal what he's actually doing, but actually it's really impacting her life. Also, it just the ending, it did build the tension build, but I had a lot of unresolved questions, and I wasn't happy with them. So I was left wanting some closure, really, with some certain things which I can't say for spoiler reasons. But for example, this is partly why what's so creepy. You left me no choice, Clarissa. I just want to take you home, Clarissa. I know your darkest secrets, Clarissa. So it was creepy, but I just had a lot of questions, and I think I gave that 3 out of 5. And the last physical book that I read in April shouldn't come as a shock to you guys. You should be expecting this, and that is Dreams of Gods and Monsters by Laini Taylor. Single-handedly my most anticipated release of the year, and like I said in my I haven't hauled this yet actually, in my Friday Reads video, possibly my most anticipated release of all time, no joke. And it was so good, guys. Like, I just can't even put into words how much I enjoyed this. This is my biggest book of the year so far that I've read. It's 613 pages, and I loved every one of them. I was worried with this, not because I didn't think Laini Taylor would be awesome, but because of how I wanted a happy ending in this book, and I love the way that it ends. Is neither a sad ending or a happy ending. It leaves it in such a good way. It's almost not an ending. It's an end to the trilogy, but you know it's not an end for the characters, if that makes sense. But it ends in a way that gives you some closure, some peace of mind. So good. Laini Taylor's writing, as always, is beautiful. It's poetic, it's lyrical. It's also, her characters are endearing and heartwarming, and some of the one-liners in here are hilarious. Without doubt a 5 out of 5 stars. Like, I'm sad that it's ended, but also I'm not, because I'm happy with where it's at, and I just can't express enough how much I loved it. And once again, I just have to show you that the beautiful title page on this. But yeah, if you haven't checked this series out, guys, you really must. It's so beautiful. I'm tempted to try and get the US hardback box set with the US covers, because I just love the series so much. So that's everything that I read in April, guys. Have you read any of these books? Did you enjoy them? Have you not enjoyed them? Let me know in the comments below. I always love to know. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and happy reading.